You met someone today and decided in less than a second whether to trust them. You did not think about it, you did not weigh the evidence, you just knew. And you may have been completely wrong, but the real reason is much stranger than bad judgment. Because the decision was not really yours, not the part of you that reasons. At least, by the time your conscious mind looked at that person's face, a much older, much faster system had already made up its mind, stamped a verdict across them, and handed you the feeling as if it were your own. Trust him. Be careful of her. Something about that one is off. You felt it as intuition. It was actually a reflex. To understand it, you have to know just how fast it happens. A psychologist named Alexander Todorov at Princeton wanted to measure how long a human being needs to decide whether a stranger's face can be trusted. So he showed people photographs of faces for a fraction of a second and asked them to rate each one. Then he showed other people the same faces with no time limit at all, as long as they wanted to stare. The judgments barely changed. In one of his studies with the psychologist Janine Willis, a tenth of a second was enough. 100 milliseconds. Faster than you can blink, faster than you can read this word, your brain looks at a face it has never seen and delivers a complete verdict on the character of the person behind it. And giving people more time did not make them more accurate. It just made them more confident in the snap decision they had already made. So what is your brain actually reading in that tenth of a second? It is reading the face like a weather report. Todorov found that the single biggest driver of whether a face looks trustworthy is how much it resembles a subtle emotional expression. Faces with naturally upturned mouths and relaxed brows look happy, even when they are not, and your brain reads that as warm, safe, approachable. Faces with naturally downturned mouths and heavier brows look faintly angry, even at rest, and your brain reads that as cold, hostile, not to be trusted. But here is the problem. Those features are an accident of bone and muscle. A person born with a slightly downturned mouth did not choose it, and it says nothing about their honesty. A person with a warm, resting face may be the most dangerous person you will ever meet. Your brain is reading a permanent expression that was never an expression at all, and it is making a life decision based on the shape of a skull. Why would evolution build something so easily fooled? To answer that, you have to go back to a world without strangers. For almost all of human history, you lived in a small band, a few dozen people, maybe 100. You knew every face from birth to death, and in that world, the speed of judgment was everything. A stranger appearing at the edge of camp was one of the rarest and most dangerous events in a human life, and you did not have time to interview them. You had a heartbeat to decide, friend or threat, approach or run. The brain that hesitated did not get to pass on its genes, so you inherited a face-reading machine tuned for instant decisions, built to err on the side of speed, built for a world where almost everyone you would ever judge was already known to you. The snap judgment was not a flaw back then, it was a life raft. It let a soft, slow animal sort the world into safe and dangerous before the dangerous thing got close. This is where the mismatch begins. A researcher named Leslie Zebrowitz spent her career studying how we read faces, and she found something she called overgeneralization. Your brain takes a few genuinely useful signals, the look of a real emotion, the look of a sick person, the look of a child, and it over-applies them to faces that merely resemble those things by accident. Consider the baby face. For very good reasons, evolution made you gentle and trusting toward infants. Big eyes, round cheeks, a small chin, a high forehead. These features melt your defenses because protecting the helpless kept our species alive. But Zebrowitz showed that adults who happen to have those same features, large eyes, round faces, soft chins, get treated as if they share the personality of a baby. We rate them as more honest, more naive, more harmless. We trust them more, hire them differently, even judge them less harshly in courtrooms. They did nothing to earn that trust. They simply have a face that hijacks an ancient circuit meant for protecting children. And con artists know this in their bones. The most successful deceivers in history did not look like villains. They looked warm, they looked open, they looked often exactly like the kind of person your ancient brain is built to trust on sight, because the cues your brain uses to judge character are visible, common, and completely disconnected from whether a person will actually help you or harm you. Anyone who learns what those cues are can wear them like a mask. So your oldest survival tool has quietly become a vulnerability. There is another layer to this, and it makes the trap even tighter. It is called the halo effect, and it was first described by the psychologist Edward Thorndike over a century ago. He noticed that when we believe one good thing about a person, we unconsciously assume a whole constellation of other good things. Watch how it works in you. When you decide someone is attractive, you also, without noticing, assume they are kinder, smarter, more competent, more trustworthy. One visible trait, beauty, leaks across your entire impression and colors everything. Studies have shown attractive people get lighter sentences, higher salaries, more second chances. Your brain treats a pleasant surface as evidence of a pleasant soul, even though the two have nothing to do with each other. This is the same machinery, doing the same ancient thing, taking a quick, visible signal and treating it as the whole truth, because for most of human history, quick and visible was all you had time for. But the judgments are not only about faces. A psychologist named Nalini Ambadi discovered something she called thin slicing. She showed people silent video clips of strangers, just 2 seconds long, with no sound, no context, and asked them to judge things like how good a teacher that person was. Then she compared those snap judgments to the ratings of students who had spent an entire semester with the same teachers. The 2 second judgments and the semester long judgments matched. Read that again. 2 seconds of silent video told people roughly what a whole term of experience told others. Your brain really is extracting something from the thinnest sliver of behavior, a posture, a micro expression, a way of moving. The ancient system is not stupid. It is astonishingly powerful. It is just pointed at a world it was never designed for. It helps to know where in your brain this verdict is born. Todorov went back to the scanner and found that a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala, the same ancient alarm that handles fear, lights up in response to untrustworthy faces. And it does this even when the face is flashed too quickly for you to consciously see it. Before you know a face was there, a part of your brain older than reason has already decided how you feel about it. That is why the verdict feels like instinct and not like thought. It happened below thought. It happened in the basement of your mind, in a structure your reptilian ancestors would recognize, long before the part of you that reasons ever got a vote. And it sorts people along two ancient lines. Psychologists who study first impressions find that almost every snap judgment collapses into two questions, the two questions that mattered most when a stranger walked toward your fire. Are they warm or cold? Does this person mean me well or harm? And are they capable or weak? Could they act on whatever they intend? Warmth and competence, friend or foe, strong or harmless. Your brain answers both in the time it takes a face to register, because for your ancestors, getting either one wrong could be the last mistake they ever made. Because here is what changed. Your face reading machine evolved to judge a few dozen people you knew your whole life. Now it judges hundreds of strangers a day. It judges faces on screens, faces in thumbnails, faces lit by ring lights and smoothed by filters, faces of people who have professionally trained themselves to look warm on camera. It fires its 100-millisecond verdict on a politician you will never meet, a stranger selling you something, a face that was edited specifically to trigger the exact trust response your ancestors used to survive, and you feel that verdict as a gut instinct, as wisdom, as I just have a good feeling about this person. That feeling is real, the machinery is real, but the world it was built for is gone. You are running ancient software, tuned for a village of familiar faces, inside a world of billions of curated strangers. The same instinct that once kept you alive now hands you, every single day, confident verdicts about people it has no business judging. So what do you do with that? You do not throw the instinct away. It is too fast and too often useful to ignore, but you can learn to notice the moment it fires. The next time you feel that instant pull toward a stranger, that warm certainty that this one is safe, you can pause and ask a quiet question. Am I reading their character, or am I reading their bone structure? Their honesty or their lighting, the person or the mask they may have learned to wear? Because the most important thing your ancient brain never learned is this. In a world of strangers, the face is not the person. The first impression is not the truth. And the feeling of certainty you get in that first tenth of a second is not knowledge. It is a guess made by a system built for a world that no longer exists, dressed up as something you know for sure. You met someone today and decided in less than a second whether to trust them. And now you know that the decision was never really about them. It was an ancient machine, reading a face the only way it ever learned how, in a world full of strangers it was never built to meet.